my name is ThinkTimm, and this is Why Make Music, the podcast, episode 8. This episode is actually going to be the conclusion of last week's episode, which was Let's Talk Influences. The reason why I want to continue this week with the Why Make Music, Let's Talk Influences is because, seriously, I kid you not, the time got away from me last week and I was completely unaware that we almost did a little over an hour, and during that time I did not get really far into my influences. I do believe this is the part of the podcast where I offer the introduction for those who are new and haven't listened. So first and foremost, I want to suggest that you go back and listen to episodes 1 through 7. Not right now. Don't cut it off. Don't stop. But check it out sometime. So, I'm ThinkTimm. I'm a independent musician, producer, songwriter, artist. I am currently independently distributing my music through United Masters. My goal is to grow a community, to grow a fan base, to find, relate, and meet other creative people. I am a hobbyist musician turning independent musician. So basically, with that being said, I am the writer, sponsor, producer, artist. I am doing it all. So, I am here to talk about why make music. I think the topic, the question, the statement, why make music, as I've said before, is a very, very interesting conversation starter when it comes to speaking to someone who's creative. So, last week we dove into the topic of Let's Talk Influences. Prior to that, we took a journey through the time management of an independent producer. We looked at the amount of music being released by independent musicians daily, which was a very shocking number per the internet. It was basically saying that almost 120,000 songs are released daily. That's amazing in itself. So, we also spoke about why would you want to, and what's the psychological makeup of a person that's attempting to, I guess, get their music or get their art heard, and the effects that might have on the person. We also spoke about in the past the attempt of trying to converse with people on social media. We talked about how to perhaps do some marketing on social media, especially when you are not necessarily the social media friendly type that likes to post constantly all the time, daily, because you have to feed those algorithms. So with all that said, I am learning my way around here. But last week, we had such a cool topic of let's talk influences. And for those who did not listen, the long, short version of it is basically I've had creative people, musicians around me, in my family, in my neighborhood, my entire life. And I am truly giving props to them for being there. Household growing up, my uncle, musician, hobbyist, bands in the 70s. My stepfather carried it from the 70s into the 80s, gigging with bands around Philadelphia, introducing our household to tons of musical styles, teaching us, not directly, not forcing us to learn it, but it was there. We took a liking to it. I have a brother who's an excellent drummer, not by profession, but this is something he does when beats up. So when you need a drummer, he wants to get down, he gets down, and he's really good. My thing is that I am a multi-instrumentalist, meaning that I start on the bass, I move to the guitar, I play some piano, keyboards, mess around on the drums. As for my personal recording, currently I'm using the digital audio workstations that are available on laptops, computers, PCs. My favorite ones that I use are Apple Logic Pro and FL Studios. So, also in the back of these podcasts are tracks that are either left over from other projects or drums I lifted from my own projects. But everything is my own original material, no samples. I'm doing all the playing, the programming, and the production. So, let's pick up where we left off at. In the prior episode, I gave major props to artists such as from John Williams to Quincy Jones to Sly and the Family Stone, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. These are things that I heard when I was younger that helped me form my opinion on the music. Elvis Presley. I know there's a line from a rap song, Elvis was a hero the most, but he never meant blank to me. Listen, normally I don't go into artists and relate to what's going on and make it a name-dropping scenario, but these influence episodes, I have to say names or I create a large guessing game that wouldn't really be fun. But Public Enemy was also a big influence. So when I left off, basically, we were talking about the late 70s going into the 80s. At this point, I've discovered the greatest influence on me musically and in my way of thinking and the way of being, which was I came across the 45 of Soft and Wet by Prince. I was too young to really get into the lyrical content of it, and my mother brought the 45, the smaller record that plays at 45 RPMs, and I still have it to this day, and I say it's my mother because her name is written on it in black ink. So I guess she's had it since she was a youngin' person, maybe going over to parties and playing records or whatever, so you tag your stuff. That was a major influence. This was prior to 1999, before Controversy, before Purple Rain, before whatever. So this was Prince establishing himself, his first single, and it was impressive to a kid that was under the age of 10. Now that I'm older and the lyrical content soft and wet, wow, went over my head completely. But it is what it is. But I grew up in Philadelphia. I grew up on a regular street, not a single home, row houses, about 60 houses per block. At one end of my block was a Baptist church. At the other, and further up on the about 2 or 3 blocks up was a Catholic school that I went to. I currently don't prescribe or have any religious affiliation to anything, but that also was forms of music and places that people played music, and these are places that in my childhood I frequent, which helped me also get a grasp on what everyone was doing around me. So as I guess a tween, going from young age into teenage years, and you find yourself being on the, I guess, the precipice of rap music taking over the world, and you have pop music, everybody from Debbie Gibson to Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, Culture Club with Boy George, George Michaels. You had a whole bunch of cultural pop people. Then you had a whole bunch of R&B groups going on. You had a bunch of older groups that were making the transition into, I guess, popular R&B music. You had groups like the Whispers. You had Luther Vandross out there singing. You had the Spinners, the Pointer Sisters. You had Aretha Franklin that was making, I guess, a grand transition from the Motown sound and bringing that into the 80s. You had great collaborations. You had Annie Lennox and the Eurythmics. You had so many different sounds going on at that time. You had people that were great and still around and kicking. You had Stevie Wonder with songs like I Just Called to Say I Love You, What Our Friends Are For, which was with Dionne Warwick. You've had Part-Time Lover. You had the group DeBarge that was house in the 80s with L. DeBarge, Bunny DeBarge, James DeBarge. Shockingly, if you did not know, the DeBarge group was the younger siblings of the group Switch, which was also another kind of like laid-back R&B group. On the rock side of things, you had, I guess, what they call the 80s hair bands coming out, and you had Bon Jovi around kicking. You still had Aerosmith, which was been around from the 70s. The Rolling Stones, John Cougar Mellencamp, Bruce Springsteen. You had Billy Joel. Billy Joel had that hot track in the 80s, Uptown Girl. So, just like today, where you have a large cross-section of music that fell into the pop category, we had that then. And at the same point, while that was going on, had the introduction of MTV, BT, VH1, the box, where artists were showing music videos much more than they're showing on TV now. There were music video shows that catered to whether it be the top 5, top 10, a certain genre of music. You had the country music channel, CMT. You had a whole bunch of them out there that basically were extension of radio stations and marketing tools to get the artists into your homes and get you familiar with the artists. So as a young man, I took all of that in. You will find me listening to anything I can listen to. You can find me watching whatever I can watch. I realized at an early age that music was something that I wanted to do, but the only thing is that I was too grounded in reality, more or less. So I knew that you had to finish high school, go to college, get a career, and you had responsibilities. With all that being said, when I was younger and I was growing up and living my life in the area I lived in Philadelphia, was a regular middle class neighborhood, but we had a bunch of stars that wanted to be stars, and it was kind of cool because you don't necessarily know. Last week on episode 7, I spoke of people that were on we called it a block, my street. And when I say my block, my street, in urban vernacular, we're talking about the hundredth of the block that you live on. So your address is blank, blank, whatever, and that would be your block would be all the numbers from the first 2 or the first 1 number on up until you get to the next digit. So like say if you lived on the 6900 block or whatever, the 6900 block is yours, and then you had a 70th, 100th, and then you had a 68 down or whatever like that. So that's how we identified the cross sections. I don't know if that's just a Philadelphia thing, but I'm just saying. So if I say my block, you know what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a cell block or a jail block. I'm just talking about a city street type thing. But on my street, I kid you not, currently where I live at, there are not a lot of kids. So it's funny when I tell stories about on my block, there had to be at least at any given time 20 or 30 kids, 20 to 30 kids. So that means that you had groups and subgroups of people who mixed and mingled, and just on your street alone, you felt as though you had friends, adversaries, enemies, people you liked. You could rank your little social groups, whatever, but we had a whole bunch of things going on. So I know my house was the live music. Like I said, my stepfather had instruments. We played music. We played it loud. Everyone was aware that, that's what was going on there. They were aware of my Prince fandom. They were aware of me. The thing that was going on everywhere else is that we had friends, neighbors down in the block that were, like I spoke of my older friend who turned me on to Quincy Jones and Phoebe Snow and the Beatles, Buddy Holly, Kiss. He was very instrumental in my voyage into Prince also, because he was older, so he had access to the music that I didn't have access to. He was a rapper at the time frame. I'm like, he had a name. He went by the name Grand Wizard Casanova, later to be changed to Prince Casanova. He had a partner named Sundown, and I think there was a girl in the group. I can't remember what her rap name was. And then they had a whole little production coming with a few people from a blocks over. A dude named Flash that did some things. It was a nice thing. They went and did I guess community centers, playgrounds, block parties or whatever, and they were good. I'm like, considering for the time, I'm like, that was the early stages of rap. So the popular rap tracks were like Curtis Blow and Planet Rock and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. So I'm not saying that they were like the epitome of rap, but they were good. And then the next little sub-generation up there, you had the people like I mentioned last week, which were Jazz and Rich. And then you had a dude that lived a few doors up from me who was the DJ, and he had the most lucrative situation going on, because I know that he had a group that he was DJing for, and he had a manager and a whole bit, and I thought they got a little bit of airplay, and the manager would come around, he was rocking like a Mercedes Benz. And when you're 12, 13 years old and you see that, and you see someone that's maybe 4 or 5 years older than you relating and doing whatever, you think, okay, this is something. But this was the 80s, and hip-hop was new, and people were realizing, which was still, I guess, from what I understand, an extension of the 70s, that everyone always has something in them to make them want to make music. If you notice, if I get on a rant, I am always going to bring it back around to why make music. So the thing that I'm saying here is that my environment around me is what instilled in me what still, obviously, if you hear the dates that I'm putting out as far as the time that I'm talking about, I am older and I am still making music now. Now, if I would have had the knowledge I have now, then I might be a household name by this point in life, because, like I said, you live your life and you have responsibilities, and you go to college, you get a job, you have a career, you have a family, you do all those things. But if you ever think about the people that we as a society tend to put on that celebrity admiration pedestal, and those who create, these are the people who never let go of their dreams. These are the people who followed through. Not saying you had to be a starving artist or you had to somehow put off your responsibilities, but no, you may have had a support group that supported you. If you were an actor, you might have took theater in high school, college, and then went on to do plays. If you were a dancer, there are tons of young ladies and young men that are going to dance schools and going to dance competitions, and not everyone is going to make their way to Dancing with the Stars, but there are people that could go and become teachers for the next generation, or they'll go and dance in college. They'll go and they might possibly just go out dancing and enjoy dancing. But the thing is that they prioritize the things that are important to them and things that make them happy. We all do it. So the thing is, when I say, why make music? This is a question that now we are at 8 episodes in. Eventually, as our listening audience grows, I would like the listeners to comment, hit me up on social media, and tell me their stories, and maybe we can connect, and I won't be here talking to myself, and we could talk about why you do what you do. Hopefully it's music, but I'm open because I know I'm enjoying what I'm doing, so I would like to share and maybe somehow incorporate other aspects of it. But the influences I had were a bit of everything coming from everywhere. You know, we had rap music, we had R&B music, we had R&B artists that were basically my age or a little older. Because you think, like, remember the song Candy Girl, New Edition? You know, you had Menudo, like a cannonball. You had all types of young kids out there being put out there to move and sell record and merchandise. You had every young kid had something going on because we could relate to the young market of rappers. You have to understand, right now, rap has basically grown up with me. So therefore, when I sit back and say, oh, there were no 40, 50-year-old rappers when I was a kid, because rap wasn't 40, 50 years old. So now we have your Rakims, your Jay-Z's, your Chuck D's, your LL's, your KRS-Ones, people who have been around, Kumo D, Nas. We lost some good ones, but we are living now the lifespan of a genre of music. Because you have to understand, when I was younger, Smokey Robinson was old to me. He's still around, he's still much older now, but he wasn't my generation. I'm like, I did not have the time to appreciate a Sam Cooke or say like a Kenny Rogers or a Chuck Berry. I miss Jimi Hendrix, you know, the Beatles wasn't popping. I got duets with Paul McCartney and MJ, but I wasn't catching the Eagles or nothing like that, you know, so. But the thing is that you have to be aware of all the sounds that you can take in. And a couple episodes ago, I did music statistics, and that's when I was talking about how much music is being put out. Shockingly, it says that in our lifetime that we take in over 1 million songs. It's weird when you say that, considering the fact that you think that you probably only hear like the same 20 or 30 songs every day. But anywho, we take it in. We're fully immersed, but at the same time completely unaware of all the sounds that we hear and that surrounds us at any given time. These are the fabrics that are woven into our minds and our memories that allow us to relate, understand, and find joy in memories that are created, or basically memories that are kind of, I guess, hyped up because of music. You know, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's almost like I don't sample, but sampling is a way, kinda, sorta, to paying homage to other forms of music, because you take a track that previously existed, and whether you know it or not, someone heard that song and someone is fully aware of the origin of that sample. And they may not even like you as an artist, but they might appreciate the rebirth of that said song. So it's all relative when it comes from your influences. Take, for example, I'm sure without saying, Dr. Dre from Compton, Inglewood, is a fan of George Clinton, is a fan of the Gap Band. It's obvious in his music, the samples that he used are samples from that era, from those artists in that time. So what's the greatest, biggest shout out you can give as a musician if that's your cup of tea, the sample? And then the greater part of that is it's like a gift that keeps on giving, because not only are you like making their music kind of more relevant, but because of publishing and copyright laws, they get paid, or at least they should get paid if their paperwork and everything was filed properly and they are the real owners of their music. But we do know that the music industry is, as they say, a little shady, so not everyone who wrote a song is getting paid for that song, or not everyone that you thought wrote the song actually wrote the song. So that's an episode for another day. But my influences, as you can see, ranged. And to go back, I would say I have a special place in my heart for hip hop, and I have a special place in my heart for rock music and pop music. And I tend to like artists that have a large catalog. I like artists that will be around and not necessarily transcend the test of time, but they're confident enough to do what they do, and hopefully they can find the financial backing to always continue to put out music and be true to themselves. I'm not a big fan of chasing the hit or liking someone because they're popular. I could get down with someone who has a similar style to something I like, and I'm not ashamed to say that I'm a fan of music, and it doesn't necessarily have to be lyrical. So I know that's a kind of odd thing when you think of liking rap, because rap is verbal, but you can like rap it and not. The funny thing is that I'm not saying I don't necessarily dissect everything that a rap artist, a rapper says in a song, but I've been known to be unaware of what they're saying because I like the cadence and the delivery, and I sometimes may not necessarily catch on to the things that are a little bit more inappropriate for a crowd. Since I've gotten older and I have a family, I tend to pay more attention to the lyrics, especially when my offspring was younger. But now that I'm getting a little older and they're older, I tend not to judge what they listen to or what they're intaking, because I know when I was their age, I was listening to far worse stuff than what they're listening to currently. The only difference is that it wasn't necessarily being played as openly. The raunchier things were not necessarily being played on the radio, so therefore just casually flipping through the dials while you're driving in your vehicle or watching TV, you tend not to have seen the things that might be a little bit more offensive verbally than you do nowadays, whatever. But not judging by no means. It's like I told you before, music is a business. I will never ever judge anyone for making money off of their talent, their skill, or their way of projecting someone else's vision through their acts. To me, a musical artist could be like an actor, like when you see Robert De Niro, you see Denzel Washington playing a role, you see Julia Roberts, you see Kerry Washington. You don't ask if they wrote the lines that they're saying. Did they create the character that they're portraying? So I think music has such a identity because it hits you harder than so many other art forms that you really want to connect with the artist, the person, the writer who came up with the piece that you're listening to or the piece that you like, so there's been plenty of times that I listen to other entertainers cover an artist that I like because I liked the song and I wanted to see their take on it. But at the same time, I never forgot that the person who wrote the song, and you always have in the back of your mind a comparison of how did they do versus the original. Or you might have a stance that sometimes I say, I'm not gonna lie to you, as a Prince fan, I tend not to want to have another artist cover a Prince song because Prince was Prince, and not necessarily will you do it justice. And unlike a lot of things, you like the song delivered by the person who wrote the song. But I'm not gonna lie to you, the funny thing is that after Prince passed away, I've never watched any of those tribute performances of his quote-unquote contemporaries performing his tracks. Realistically, the only person that I dig doing covers of his track for some reason is Sheila E. Yeah, it's weird. So she does this hell of a version of America, and it sounds very much so like she captures the energy that he put into his music. And if you're a Prince fan, you know that they did a lot of recording together, the two of them. So maybe it was all in the same vein, realistically. I would love to perhaps see the MPG just perform the music and maybe pipe in his vocals or whatever on keyboards, but not like the new singer guy they have covering Prince. Just you're spoiled. As a fan, you become spoiled, and everybody holds their fandom in a certain way, and that's how I tend to hold that one, because it was such a major influence. It's not like saying that you're a fan of a basketball team or a football team or a sports organization, that you rock with the team no matter who the players are. So when you have someone that, as I say, it's the reason why I make music sincerely, is because, like I said towards the end of the last episode, when I was younger and you were looking at the albums and the CDs before the cassette tapes, and the back of a Prince album or CD or cassette tape said produced, arranged, composed, and performed by, a lot of times it was a situation that I still use to this day, because in comparison, a lot of music that we get and that we receive from artists, musicians, creative entities, it might be, or it may be, it may not be, but most of the time it is a song made up of a full band of people, or several people went into the studio and they came back out with this product, and it might go under the umbrella of the name of a person. Prime example, I will entertain the biggest debate, I guess, for my age range of entertainers. Growing up, it was like Coke and Pepsi. You always had to choose one side or the other, which you did not necessarily really have to do. But if you were going to do so, I guess you just had to put things in perspective. Now, people to this day, they hold MJ, Michael Jackson, to such a high esteem as an entertainer. And I get it. I understand. I've seen him perform. I've seen him do his thing. And yes, he is captivating, in the way that he moves is very entertaining. But if you remove all the visual situations from it, if you had to wake up, this is what I tell folks nowadays. If that person, and I'm not saying that this is the way it should go, my word is not the law, I am not the most intelligent person in the world. I don't expect people to take my opinion and say it's fact. But what drove me to be a basically lifelong fan of the people who influenced me was the fact that, say, if I heard a song by Miles Davis, other than the extra arrangement that might have been put to it, that's Miles, the horn arrangements, I've seen video, I've seen footage of him playing other instruments and instructing other people what to play to get the final product. What I'm getting at is that as a producer, we have a lot of solitary producers in our world of entertainment currently. Back to my favorite, back to my why I make music and why make music was because of, like I said, that simple phrase: produced, arranged, composed, and performed by Prince. With that being said, to me, it was a situation that when you go, if Prince were to wake up and go into the studio every day by himself, we may still have the same or close to the same creative output that we have now. Short of engineers and some band members that added flavor to it, but I would say possibly a good majority of his catalog would still be his catalog. The reason why I say that is that there are few artists that do it all. And by that, I'm not saying that it's special, because I know for a fact that there are thousands of multi-instrumentalists that are just as good, if not as good, as Prince. It's just that they didn't necessarily have that lightning in a bottle at that time. They didn't have the opportunity to show and prove. Just like when you talk about sports, you always hear the story of, oh, there was this player who didn't go to college that played around the way that was just as good as Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or Steph Curry, but they didn't go to college. But you wouldn't want to meet him at the playground because he'll drop 50 on you without a problem. So, I know for a fact that these people may not necessarily be the greatest of all times. I had a guitar player that played for me years ago, and a bass player that played for me, that I would tell you we would bury him. I wanted to say the bad word, but I'm not going to say it. We would bury people, seriously, because they were that good. And I was honored that I could play with them, and they thought I was okay, so it was kind of cool. It's an odd thing. But, like I said, the thing is that when you're put in that position to, quote unquote, say what influenced you or what made you do what you do, and I know I might get a lot of feedback as a child of the late 70s into the 80s, and I say hands down that Prince has it because, like I said, he was the one-stop shop for his product. I do believe greatly, and I am open for debate and conversation about this, but without Quincy Jones, I don't believe we would have Off the Wall, Thriller, or Bad. And those were the landmark albums that put MJ out there, and Quincy Jones is still alive today, and there's tons of committed documentaries that are basically saying that Thriller was made by committee. Off the Wall had other musicians, Greg Philolanis, the keyboard player. You had a lot of veteran studio musicians that were laying down tracks for Quincy. Rod Templeton, the writer. You know, you had a lot of people. Now Michael Jackson gets credit for writing songs, but did he lay the tracks down? Because some of the songs are great when they're by themselves and they're just instrumentals, and I can't give credit. Not that anyone's judging or thinking that I need to give credit to, but if you are making music, it's the whole collective that is getting judged. And like I said, I'd rather give credit where credit is due, as opposed to just putting it under the umbrella of one person. So I love going on YouTube and hearing the stories and listening to the stories or watching the videos of the musician that came in that's basically unknown, that might have played the majority of something on some album or some song that you're familiar with, but it's a shame they didn't get credit. But I like the fact that they're speaking on it, and they don't, a lot of times they're not even upset or bothered by it. It's just the fact that it was what it was, and I encourage every listener to go and, what do you guys do now? Wikipedia, look up the credits for these songs and the producers that are on the song. So I'm just gonna throw it out there. There's an album that came out recently, and I kid you not, there was like 16 songs on the album, and there were at least 100, if not 100 or more people listed under the production credits. And that's a lot of pie to cut up to give everybody their percentage of that money, between samples that were used and everybody putting their hand in a bowl to give their opinion and getting credit for this stuff. That's a lot of money. And then I'm sure it was a big time artist. That's why I'm not saying any names. And I know this person. I know this person, and I've never seen this person play an instrument on stage, or maybe once in a video behind scenes I saw this person play the piano or something, but not enough to say that they produced the song. And other, like, now possibly lyrically they did it. They might have wrote the song, but I don't think a lot of times these people that we're giving credit to put pen to paper or sit back and put a bass line or a drum line down. So all I'm saying is that when it comes to making music, I personally tend to put a lot of weight on the collective experience. And the thing is, don't get me wrong, I give credit to everybody that's involved, but I just want everyone who is involved to get credit. So don't say that, oh, one person is a better entertainer than another person when you're dancing to someone else's song, or a song that might have been around before they even hooked up with that person. I think that's one thing I kind of respect about the hip-hop game. And sometimes when people pull no punches, it's like, oh, I had a producer, I heard this track inspired me, I rapped over top of it, we made a few changes, so forth and so on. But sometimes you have a situation where there's no shame in the fact that the track was made at one time and then it inspired someone to put lyrics over top of it. And listen, that's another thing. I know when I get towards the end of these podcasts, I tend to go on these crazy rants because I look at the clock and I be thinking like, oh my God, I got so much more to say and time's ticking away. But think about it, and I say it all the time. You can be creative. You can be very creative. You can rap about anything. You can rap about being on another planet. You don't have to necessarily have lived and walked in the footsteps of the lyrics that you are saying. The reason why I say that is that rap, pop, songwriting all together is such a creative art form, and it touched so many people that a lot of times we still expect these folks to be living every word that they say. Now the thing is, don't get me wrong, I don't think it's necessary. That's all I'm saying. I'm like, be creative, expand your mind, tell a story. Some of the greatest stories ever written down, the person did not necessarily have to experience it in order for it to happen. I'm like, listen, we have a whole genre of books called science fiction, fantasy, so not everything is nonfiction. And we enjoy good stories that have a bit of truth to them and are based in reality, but it doesn't necessarily mean that these writers did the thing. So all I'm saying is that, listen, because I know there are a lot of aspiring songwriters that feel as though, oh, I don't have the life experience, so therefore I don't know. Now, don't get me wrong, over a period of time, your experience will expand your writing. You can read books to help you expand your writing. You become more educated in the world or in life itself. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go out there and do all the things that you say or that you write about. So, I'm going to leave you with a thought. And next week, I'm going to get back to my normal talking about making my music open up a bit and let you into my thoughts. Once again, make note, there was nothing negative about anything. I appreciate and I love all music. I love all music creators. Anybody that can put a thought down is great, but just give credit where credit is due. That's all I ask. I'm like, especially because, like I told you a few episodes ago, I'm trying to crack the code, and I'm trying to figure out what makes this music industry, or this lack of music industry, work and work to my benefit. So therefore, I want to make sure that everyone's fully aware that you can do it by yourself. You can work hard, you can put the time in, you can sit back and say, oh, I did it. And the funny thing is that as a independent person who I ventured into this sharing music with everybody for the simple fact that whether I was sharing it with you or not, I'm still going to be doing it. So that's the thing. That's the point that I'm getting at. When you do something, you don't do it for the love of other people. I know for a fact that whether I'm sitting here playing music for myself, or, now mind you, I wouldn't be doing a podcast and just recording myself talking for the sake of doing that, but as far as creating sound and music, I'm gonna hopefully do this forever. You know what I'm saying? Like, I look forward to sharing this with my grandkids, great grandkids, and leaving tapes and files for them to find, to sit back and say, oh, this dude has some ideas, and music is music. What I tell you, as long as I don't play something in the wrong key and make you turn your nose up and think, what the hell is he doing? It should be okay. Like, I have some bad stuff. One day, maybe I'll put some stuff in the background that'll just be like hot garbage, you know? And you'd be like, oh, that don't sound right. Or that don't sound right there. Because, you know, sometimes you're making a song and you can just like veer to the left and go the wrong way. But with all that being said, thank you for tuning in. We have crossed over the hour mark. I hope I kept you entertained. I hope you tune in again. I hope you listen. I need you to like, subscribe, press that button. Hit me up on my social media accounts. They're all ThinkTimm, ThinkTimm, at Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. What else I got going on? I started a Discord page. I don't have anything on it yet. Listen, I'm telling you, I'm being honest. It's a lot of work trying to maintain all these things and live your life. Because I have a very nice, regular, everyday life that I try to involve myself in when I'm not doing this music thing. So, in all honesty, hit me up. I promise I will get back to you. I am trying my best to be proficient with social media. I am trying to engage. I am trying to give myself a presence on air. I'm trying not to flood my timeline with stupid stuff. So, thank you once again. This is Why Make Music, ... Episode 8. Let's continue to talk about influences Next week, we're going to get back into the regular do-it-yourself music production, and we'll talk some cool stuff, and we'll have fun. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out. I greatly appreciate it. Once again, I say it sincerely. I am very, very humble because I do check the analytics, and you guys are doing good. Thank you for listening, because I'm nobody, and I would definitely stay being nobody without you guys listening. And I ain't gonna lie to you, I don't want to be somebody. All I want to do is share my music, tell a story, hopefully something I can say will motivate and create the next Prince, Michael Jackson, Billy Idol used to be the man. How about R&amp? Do y'all remember R&amp? That dude was crazy back in the day. Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey, Stevie Nicks, the man, Jane Childs, I Don't Want to Fall in Love. Peace out. Shout out to the chick who put out my song on the map. Nothing compares to you, Sinead O'Connor, Tori Amos. Let me go pop on you. Let me tell you, shout out to that new chick out there now, Chapel Roan. She got it going on. I like her stuff. Shout out to all the pop boy bands. NSYNC, New Kids on the Block, New Edition, ABC, Belle Biv DeVoe, Boys to Men, L.A. Reid, Babyface.